Tonight's presentation is one of the finest of the contemporary stories of mystery and terror.
Here it is, the Bakersfield Podcast with Matt Munoz. Audio brought to you by Chain Cone Clark.
Seasons, greetings, my beloved Bakersfield Podcast listeners. It is your host, Mr. Matt Munoz, a.k.a. Santa Claus. You know, it's the holiday season, tempers are running high, and crime is running rampant in cities everywhere. To help keep you in a festive mood, I heard that some experts have actually recommended sitting down with your favorite true crime podcast or book. Documentaries on true crime remain the most popular topic amongst listeners, and our next guest hosts one of Bakersfield's top shows. He is the host of the popular Notorious Bakersfield podcast and now author of the new Notorious Bakersfield, the book, just in time for stuffing the stocking of your favorite true crime enthusiast. Please welcome to the Bakersfield podcast, Mr. Robert Peterson.
Thank you, Matt. Thank you for having me.
Yes. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great.
You know, before we came on, I said, your name is hot right now. Notorious Bakersfield is everywhere. You are always on brand. I love it because I'm a shameless self-promoter myself when it comes to things that I'm involved in. I see you on there. People love you. It seems like you're having a great time with this.
I am.
Since the Notorious Bakersfield has just kind of taken off, right?
I am having a great time.
We're going to do a little catch-up before we get to the book. Now, Notorious Bakersfield podcast. If you're just new to this, it's a true crime podcast pulled from the pages of the Bakersfield Californian, the archives, as far deep as you can go. That's kind of what I get. But tell us what Notorious Bakersfield is.
It is whatever made headlines back in the day. It's not exclusive to true crime. It is heavy on true crime, but there's other stories in there that made headlines from back in the day. With the 1977 windstorm, I did a story on that. I did a story on the train wreck in 1960 in Rosedale. It is the worst mass casualty event that Bakersfield has experienced. 15 people were killed in that train crash in Rosedale, and that area out there where it had occurred, where Allen Road and Hageman and Santa Fe Way, where all those converge. Yeah, they've made it an underpass, and the railroad passes over. So it's safer today, but that's where it had occurred back in 1960, and 15 people were killed. God,
so yes, it is not all true crime. However, when people think of Notorious Bakersfield, I'm sure it's the first thing they say. It's a true crime podcast, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so you have to go and, it's not all true crime.
Exactly.
You always have to do a little bit of that. Okay, so when did you launch the podcast?
I launched it in June 1st, 2021.
What kind of inspired you to get this podcast going?
During COVID, I started reading archive copies of the Bakersfield Californian, found these fascinating stories, and I thought about writing a blog, but I'm not a very good writer. And
oh, hush!
No, listen. So I'm not a very good writer. I can write for a script, how I'm going to present a story, but for somebody to consume the story by reading it, it's totally different. So, anyways, I decided to do a podcast, and I became a quick study in podcasting, and I launched it June 1st, 2021. And so it's always been in the back of my mind that I'm going to have it some kind of written form. I didn't know what it was. So once I got several stories under my belt, I started thinking more about writing a book. But like I said, I'm not a writer. About a year and a half ago, I met a young lady from Georgia emailed me, and she's from Bakersfield. She went to high school here, graduated from West High, and her name's Carolyn Harvey. And she just emailed me, said she's a fan of Notorious Bakersfield, that Notorious Bakersfield is her connection back to Bakersfield. And it was just a nice email introducing herself. And then a few months later, she emailed me again and said she and her family were going to be in Bakersfield and would like to meet me. So I met her at a Starbucks, and I discovered that she's a writer, editor, and multimedia expert and PR expert, and so I kicked it around my head, and I thought, should I ask her if she'd be willing to work with me on this project? And as soon as I approached her, she said absolutely. And so I just kind of gave her my scripts. She did her wordsmithing, and then she got a manuscript together about the beginning of this summer, and we've been editing it all summer long.
Oh yeah. Now I'm holding a copy of the book, which we are going to come back to but I still want to go back to. I want to get people acquainted with the podcast before we get to the book, because there's I mean it all traces back to the podcast, and I think like you said, during COVID, you started kind of finding these archives, which when you talk about the Bakersfield, Californian, that is kind of, everybody's, even myself as a former employee, the Bakersfield, Californian archives, that is kind of like the only kind of imprint that we have to like a lot of the history of Bakersfield. There hasn't been a lot written about it. And so the Californian, it's a historic family-owned newspaper. Hopefully like people are able to find everything that they're looking for. But I think what you were able to find, that there are so many notorious, pun intended, notorious stories and features and archives related to the history of Bakersfield. It's really amazing because, when we see these documentaries, I think that unless you live, it always seems like they take place in like Mississippi or some Tennessee or some of these Gothic-looking places where there's lots of swamps and and trees and forests, and where people are going to get lost. Like they travel this road, and every 2 weeks another woman is missing or something like that. But we have a lot of that stuff that kind of happened around here in the Central Valley. Now, let me ask you this about the Notorious Bakersfield podcast. How many episodes are you currently at?
I think 118.
118.
Yeah. I release one every week. I've taken some weeks off and just reran them.
Well, now, what are the average lengths of the podcast episodes?
When I started out with the podcast, I was a quick study in podcasting. I learned that people listen to podcasts when they're doing other things, mainly commuting to work or school. They're folding their laundry, they're doing dishes, and that's what people are doing while they're listening to podcasts. So I researched commute time in Bakersfield, and it's between 15 and 20 minutes. And so that's kind of my sweet spot for the podcast. I thought I want people to listen to it on their way to work or school. And so that's about 15, 20 minutes, and that's what the length of the podcast is. Not saying that podcast longer can't be successful, but that's my sweet spot.
Yeah, it always wants them coming back for more. They just can't wait. They can't wait. And the fact that you've been able to self-edit and put this into compact stories, because I've heard a lot of the episodes, and I'm like, yeah, it's just enough. It's just enough. Like, and then it makes you want to go kind of do your own research. And I can see why you've developed such a loyal following, because you post something online and there's people that they can't wait. They've been counting days for the book to come out, and the book is finally out. Notorious Bakersfield book. If you're just tuning in, I'm joined by Mr. Robert Peterson, who is the host and the creator of the Notorious Bakersfield podcast, and now the Notorious Bakersfield the book. Now, like we said before at the intro, that the world is obsessed with the true crime documentaries. I mean, it still continues. Now I'm like, man, we're never going to be able to run out of stories for documentaries. Now, were you always into these type of stories growing up, or was it you kind of jump into when the fad kind of hit?
No, I've always been like a news junkie. I've always paid attention to local stories, and when things happen, I read about them in the paper. So I've always had that interest, whether or not they're true crime or not. But yeah, I've always been interested in local stories. As far as true crime specifically, no. I mean, what I listen to on my podcasts vary. Right now, I'm listening to self-published books. That's the podcast that I'm consuming. So it depends on what my interests are at that time.
Yeah.
So
now, do you have besides the podcast, are you going to have a audio version of the book?
I thought about it, because these stories that are in the book are pretty much stories that were in the podcast, and I don't know if I'm going to have an audio version or not. People have asked me that. Would you
voice it? I mean, you got a great voice. Would you do it yourself, or
possibly? I would do it myself.
Yeah. Now, if you had a chance to get a celebrity voice, who would be your ideal voice?
Oh my gosh, Burley Smith. Burley's dead, but
We'll use the AI Burley.
if I could keep him from laughing.
Oh my God! Yeah. Now is he in the book?
No,
He's not in the book.
No, not yet.
Not
He's
yet.
a story idea.
Oh wow!
For people who don't know, Burley Smith was a news anchor for years and years and years on Channel 23. Wasn't it 23?
Yeah, it was 23. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I remember going into the studio years ago when he was still around, and then I was young. I don't know what I was doing there. And you walked in, you see all the pictures, and I was like, "That's Burley Smith." I mean, everybody knew. I mean, that's back in the 70s and the 80s. Like news anchors were celebrities, and they were always the spokesperson, not only your TV news, where the trusted news source. They were the ones who gave you the news, but they were on commercials. They hosted the parade. They hosted this. They hosted that, and they went to the schools and spoke.
And he had an amazing voice. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is that when I worked in retail, and I heard Burley's voice, and I'm like, that's Burley Smith. And I looked up, and I'll be dang, there's Burley Smith standing in front of me.
Oh, man. Yeah, no, they were everywhere. Everywhere. Now, have you been in direct contact with any of the survivors of any of these crimes, any of these stories, victims, relatives, or people associated with any of the cases from the podcast and the book?
Yeah. I've approached some survivors of victims,
They're
like their
survivors.
kids or something like that. At first, was my objective. I'm going to interview the survivors. I found out right away that they're not exactly too gung ho about revisiting that tragedy.
Yeah.
And I respect that. I understand that, but disappointed to a certain extent. But I understand it completely. I don't know what it's like to have a child or parent killed. So.
Oh yeah. Well, what about have they reached out to you when they has somebody reached out
interesting
to you?
people have. Just recently, I did a story about Hank Clayson. He was a retired CHP officer, and he was murdered in his house. And his grandson reached out to me, which I was grateful for because it's a tragic story that I really wanted to cover, but the assailant was killed by the police. So there was no trial. There wasn't a lot of information. I think it ran in the paper maybe like 1 or 2 days. So there's not a lot of information out there about the case. So when the son reached out to me, it gave me the opportunity to learn a little bit more about Hank and some events around that crime that took his grandfather. So I was grateful for that. So.
Yeah. Do most of the sources come from the archives of the Californian? And did you find that it was, back then compared to now, in comparison to now, like the research was how thorough was it?
Oh yeah, that's
documentation.
That's what attracts me to the old cases, is because they went really deep. Like they will just, if it was a love triangle that was, that led up to the crime, they put it in the paper, Nowadays, they write the articles based on press releases that the coroner's office or the police department give, and it's very one-dimensional.
Yeah. Just
the facts. A 39-year-old male was blah, 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 blah. Nothing like what they did back in the 30s or 40s or,
Yeah. What about archives from like smaller newspapers from the surrounding area?
Shafter, I think the Shafter Free Press is on the newspaper archives, and I have reused them as a source for different things because they have covered different events that happen in Bakersfield.
Was there any other obscure sources that you found along the way? Like, I didn't know there was this newspaper.
No,
the tabloid or something.
The Bakersfield Morning Echo. It was in the 20s. It was in publication in the 20s. And then they got bought out. The Californian, Alfred Herald bought them out. And, I read that he bought them out for $800,000 back in the 20s, which seems like a lot of money. I have to verify that because that seems like a lot of money.
Well, they came out okay then.
Well, yeah, yeah, absolutely. Whoever owned the Echo got a lot of money, but and then the Californian only published it for like 3 weeks, and then they shut it down. So basically, they just kind of like took over their competitor.
Yeah.
So.
Gosh, that was those days of the big publishers.
Yeah.
Over the weekend, last weekend, my wife and I, we went up to Palm Springs and we visited the Annenberg house. We went to Sunnylands. And so I didn't know that the Annenbergs were such huge in the publishing business. So they had TV Guide, 17 Magazine. They had all those magazines. And so they were huge. And I was like, wow, that was obviously the golden era of like the big publishing houses that owned, and, they rubbed elbows with all the celebs. So I could just imagine, though, Alfred Harrell. Yeah, I mean, his ghost still lingers through the streets of Bakersfield. What are some of the stories that have stayed in your memory or kind of haunted you over these past couple of years?
Stories in the book or the podcast?
I guess a little bit of both, because, I mean, they reflect each other, right?
Absolutely, yeah. The stories that, the abandoned on the freeway. She was a little girl in the late 60s. She was 5 years old, and her mom and stepdad abandoned her on the freeway just south of Bakersfield, kind of where the 99 I-5 intersect. And CHP got a call that there was this little girl on the side of the freeway, and went to investigate, and sure enough, there's this little girl on the side of the freeway. She said that her name was Jody Smith. They brought her back to Bakersfield. They tried looking for all the Smiths in Bakersfield. They couldn't find her, or couldn't find the Smith family that knew who she was. So they kind of were at a dead end. So they published her picture in the newspaper. Didn't get a response here in Bakersfield, so they branched out. They published it in other papers in California. Finally, somebody in Southern California said that she looked like a former neighbor's child. And so they took Jody down to L.A. and so to see if this neighbor could identify her. And she did. It was a former neighbor, and they were able to find the mother and stepdad who had abandoned her on the side of the freeway. And, they were prosecuted, the parents. But people in Bakersfield, I heard about this story on the Facebook group, Kern County of Old. And I'd never heard this story before, so I just couldn't believe it. They abandoned a little girl, 5 years old, on the side of the freeway. And so I started researching it, and I discovered the story, and I searched for the girl, found her, that she's still around, and I reached out to her and asked her if she'd be interested in being interviewed, and she was. So,
ooh,
yeah. And her memory is amazing, what she remembers from that night.
And she was nice and comfortable about it. Now, is this something? This is
in the book.
This is in the book.
In the book.
Okay, so let's get to the book. Now you have a book because you have the podcast, which if you haven't heard of already, you should go check it out. But we want to talk about this book, Notorious Bakersfield, the book. Robert Peterson and Carolyn S. Harvey. It's perfect for bedside reading. Is it comprehensive? It's still kind of like, where did you stop?
It's kind of vignettes about the different stories, kind of the same, exactly like my script. So yeah.
Some people prefer books, and some people prefer
podcasts. And that's the thing, is that there's a whole demographic out there that doesn't listen to podcasts that would be interested in these stories. So that's kind of why I wanted a book, is to retell these stories for people that don't listen to podcasts.
Yeah, I think if you come from like the era of you and I come from, where reading the newspaper and your imagination runs wild. I think when you read the book, I think that depending on what type of imagination that you have, it could be a much more creepy experience, or just a different type of experience. You can get thrills if everything's true crime, if it's kind of sort of a grisly story or mysterious. I think when you read the book and then the images through your mind start, going crazy, I think this is going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait to read it, because I've heard, like I said, I've heard a lot of the podcast episodes, and it seems like, man, you're pumping them out so quick. Like, okay, well, I got some catching up to do. I think I'm probably about 50. I remember about 55. I didn't realize you had so many.
Well, I interviewed you for number 69. Remember that? So
Yes,
I'm at 118 now.
That was around the Halloween time. Now,
Yeah.
now we're not going to, but you are working on an extended, I heard maybe, you know, about the Ronnie Cook story. You're working on something that?
Yeah, I'm researching that now.
So if you know, if the name sounds familiar, it's because of the song "The Goo Goo Muck," which kind of like had its kind of a new life because of the Wednesday. Jenna Ortega, she played Wednesday and it was on Netflix, and so she does the dance with the Goo Goo Muck. But it was the Cramps version, but people didn't know that the original version was out of Bakersfield by Ronnie Cook and the Gay Lads, and he has his own story of his own with Fort Cook. And I can't wait to what kind of stuff you uncover there.
You know, it's not too nefarious. You know, there's so many misconceptions around Fort Cook that it was
we've heard a lot of things.
I mean, it was and I went there. You know,
Yeah.
I used to go there, or I didn't hang out there. I think I went twice. And then years later, when I started hearing about all these things, I'm like, well, I don't remember that. You know, that's not how I remember it. And so anyways, there's a lot of misconceptions that it was like a drug den and houses of prostitution, and it's interesting what people, you know.
Yeah, and I know people who became really good friends that knew Ronnie Cook for many years since they were kids, and they, like his place in the music history of local music history has never really truly been told, because he went from the rock and roll through the country to, you know, then he just kind of disappeared, and then, you know, that's where all the stories kind of like start popping up. And if you were to do a search for Ronnie Cook, the Bakersfield Ronnie Cook, there's not a whole lot of information on just like your average regular Google search. But like you, I'm sure you're going to be doing some digging and being able to kind of like find the truth, because even people like Bob Price, local reporter who worked with me at the California, now is in Channel 17. Even he is kind of like hit a lot of walls, and he's just like calling me up, hey, well, where do I even go from here? I'm like, I don't know, man. You know, I mean, you know, that's what you do. You're supposed to be finding it. You have a lot more access than me.
Yeah, I think it was, and Fort Cook was the club, or is that what you call it? As a club? It was kind of like a private club.
Yeah, I think it was a club. It didn't start out. Yeah, it in the beginning it started out as kind of like a little private VIP oasis, and so Ronnie Cook wanted to make it kind of like a luxurious kind of like private community. But a lot of celebrities, when they came through town, I heard somebody had told me that maybe like Chris Christopherson spent some time there. Like when they came to town to perform, you know, he hosted them. So he was like, Ronnie Cook was up there with like Buck Owens, with like having kind of like these celebrity friends, because he was also a musician.
Right.
And it was a place where if they were in the Central Valley, they can go over there. That area of Chester Lane, which is kind of like at a dead end, it was very exclusive. So I'm sure back in the 60s and the 70s, it was a different area. And like you, I've gone over there. I had some friends who rented apartments there, and we kind of partied. But this was before I knew about the actual history of Fort Cook. But back in the 80s, you say, oh, Fort Cook, and everybody just kind of like looked at each other. Oh, yeah, Fort Cook. And then it's like, okay, Ronnie Cook, the Goo Goo Muck, this, that. I mean, it just keeps, you know, man, you can. I guess
he was friends with Wayne Newton in Las Vegas, and then I heard, and I need to verify this, I heard that Oxy owned that before Ronnie Cook took it over. I guess that's where they put up the executives when they came to town. That's what I had heard. I need to go look at the deeds and go to the Hall of Records.
I have seen brochures from Fort Cook. Have you ever seen those brochures?
No.
I'll show them to you.
Okay.
I'll show them to you. Yeah. In fact, we'll talk about this off air. I got some Fort Cook stuff for you, because I would love for this to be part of like, just tell us more story, because everybody, you need these things, and people don't just hold this stuff and hide it away. If you got some stuff to share with Robert, send it to him, man. What are you doing holding a secret just so you can tell your friends? Oh, I know some things. Well, tell us all about it. Well, I can't tell you. Well, then don't bring it up. We want to hear about it. That's why like Robert just he hit on the nail, man. This is like gold, because he came out with the Notorious Bakersfield podcast. It was a hit. That's something that a lot of people out there, myself included, geez, why didn't I think of that? Dang, this is awesome. I love it. But, you know, all the success you've had is well deserved. let's see.
One of the more obscure stories that I really enjoy in the book is, and it was a podcast, is the story about George Putnam. Do you know who George Putnam was?
Was there Putnam wins?
No, he was he was the husband of Amelia Earhart, and when she went missing, he remarried. I think he was remarried, but he was a writer-publisher, and he wrote a book about the Nazis. And about 2 years after Amelia Earhart went missing, they'd already declared her dead. He was publishing this book, and he wanted to get some publicity about the book. And he claims he was abducted and brought to Bakersfield off of Cottonwood Road. A couple found them over by their house. He was bound and gagged in a shed, and it was a big deal in Bakersfield. And he claimed he was kidnapped from his Hollywood house and brought to Bakersfield, and nobody was ever able to verify that story was true. A lot of people thought it was a hoax. That's the title of the chapter, is Kidnapping or Hoax. Ooh. And his car was found over by the Union Avenue plunge, which predates us, but our parents remember the Union Avenue plunge. But it was never able to verify that he was kidnapped, and a lot of people claimed. Matter of fact, a reporter asked Putnam if this was a hoax, and he said, "You think I'd soil my trousers for a hoax?"
I'm looking at the book, and so I'm looking at the chapter. So it starts out with the murder of two fairies. Let's see, you got the 1952 earthquake, the Virgin Mary in Bakersfield, which I remember because I went by there and I saw that. A murder at the Padre Hotel, the killer communist catching a pyro, Dungeons, Dragons, and triple murder. Al Robbins, the Snake Man. Oh my gosh, he came to my school in McFarland. You paid 25 cents. They gave you a little ticket, and I remember he would let those snakes just get almost like they were going to leap off the stage, and we'd be right up in the front, and like this old man. I mean, he looked like Mr. Magoo.
He was 100 years old. He was 100 years old forever.
Yeah, I know. He's like George Burns. Like, he just looked that same way. The Sledgehammer murders, and like you said, Kidnapping or Hoax, which is chapter 24. What was the timeline and how you were able to put this to the production timeline? How long did it take to get this all together?
Well, I'd written the scripts, for the podcast, and then kind of gave them to Carolyn, my co-author. Yeah, and she just kind of did her writing, put them into a reading format where it's easier to read.
How many drafts did you have to go through?
Well, she did most of it electronically, but then once we got a manuscript, it took us about 3 months to edit it. Yeah.
When was the book officially out? When was it officially released?
When was it?
It might have been a couple
right,
weeks
right.
ago,
Well,
right?
yeah. We were going. I was shooting for Black Friday, but Amazon is published through Amazon. They couldn't deliver them in time, so I had to postpone it. And so officially, the first launch party was last Sunday.
Now, what's the public reaction been to the book? You already know about the podcast, and that's already gangbusters. Yeah. But how's it been out since it's
we've got on Amazon. We've gotten 3 5-star ratings. So it's been a good response. So everybody I've talked to that has read it has really enjoyed it. So an author that I read, a true crime author, he gave it a 5-star review, which was kind of a feather in my cap. So
no, I'm sure that they've been waiting for something about Bakersfield to come out because they're like, yeah, I know that Bakersfield's got to have some secrets going on in there. And that's the thing I love about this podcast. It's like, oh my gosh, like why are we spending so much time looking at what's going on in other cities? We have all that stuff right here. I mean, if you're into it,
right?
If you're into the kind of like the scandals and the fun stuff and the crazy stuff, like Uncle Woody's Fire and all those. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff.
And
now,
that's
that's on the podcast, right?
Well, not yet. It's one of the stories I'm going to cover.
Oh, see, so you want to go over there and check that out. Now you've met a lot of your fans in person. You've done the meet and greets for the book. What's the most common question you get from listeners and readers that follow the podcast and now reading the book?
Common question.
Yeah. Because you say, I'm opening this up for question. Do they want to know? Like, do they ask you like weird questions, or they want to pitch you? They want to pitch you stories, and they want to do all that?
I do take story requests. People ask me about story requests. One of the most requested stories is Vincent Brothers, and which I'm not. I haven't shut the door on that, but I'm just not too interested in covering it because it's been covered. You can Google Vincent Brothers and everything comes up.
Yeah.
And other podcasts have actually covered Vincent Brothers crimes.
Yeah, that's wild. And, not to say her name, but I remember I think the last woman that he was dating she's the principal at, my son's a teenager now, but the school that he was attending, when he was in elementary school, she was the teacher. And I remember I was like, oh my God, that's the lady that Vincent Brothers was dating. And she's a super nice lady. And like, I'm sure she had no idea. And when this news comes out, I'm sure like, oh my gosh. And every time I would see her, I'm just like the mother of baby Jessica. Mm-hmm. She was my teller at the bank that I was at. And every time I saw her, you could see just the sadness on her face. It's something that would never go away. You're never gonna. You always know, like, they've been searching for her to find out, whatever happened to her daughter and everything, who killed her and everything like that. And every time I see her, I'd be like, I'd want to say, I'm really sorry. Yeah. But I would just I could just see the sadness. She just, it was like a brief smile.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if you've known anybody who has lost a child, whether they lost them as an adult when they were an adult or as a child, it's just something that they just
never
scars
get over.
them.
Oh,
no.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay. So how would you, when you meet a lot of the people that listen to the show, how would you describe the average listener of Notorious Bakersfield? Is there like a profile of a listener that you can describe?
What's interesting, if I look at my stats, is half of them are outside of Bakersfield. Only half of them are in Bakersfield, which I think is I think that's an interesting stat. So it's people are listening to it that have a connection to Bakersfield. They lived here before, they're from here, they're born here, some kind of connection to Bakersfield, or maybe their family lives here, and they, so I just think that's kind of fascinating.
Yeah, well, that's how you found Carolyn Harvey found you.
She
was able to tighten this up, and also a fellow Californian alumni.
Right.
Now, was there anybody in the audience that you've noticed that could be a person of interest in one of your stories? Like, I'm kind of scanning the place, and there might be a spy in here.
What do you mean?
I don't know.
A future episode?
Yeah. Has anybody kind of creeped you out?
No. Actually,
I mean, you're kind of a big guy, so I'm sure you'd be like, oh,
please. Actually, the event that we had at the library the other day. One of the subjects of that story came to the event, and it was catching a pyro, and his name is Marvin Casey, and he was a arson investigator for the Bakersfield Fire Department. And there was a fire in the 80s over at the Craft Mart on Ming Avenue.
Yeah.
And somebody just walked by and dropped an incendiary device into a bin of dried flowers and let it go. It just took off. And he went to investigate it. He found a remnant of the device that somebody dropped in, and on that remnant, he found a fingerprint. And while he's investigating it, that fire, there's another fire over in the Hancock Fabric over on South H. And so he's on his way over there, and he gets a call from his colleagues who had been up to a fire arson investigation convention in Fresno. And he says, hey, I'm busy down here. I've got 2 fires. They said, where were they? And he says, a Craft Mart and a Hancock. And he says, well, up here in Fresno, there were 2 fires last night in the same type of store. And so he said, well, get down here. So they came down. They started investigating it. Come to find out, he had a suspicion that it was an arson investigator, somebody that was up in Fresno at that convention. Then they discovered there were 2 more fires in Tulare. So he thought somebody's just going along lighting these fires in these real retail stores. And come to find out, that single fingerprint, he was able to get a list of names and matched the fingerprint to a name of a fire arson investigator that had been at that conference. He was responsible for hundreds of fires down in L.A., not just in Bakersfield. Mm-hmm. He was like the most prolific arsonist in California. Hundreds and hundreds, including one fire.
The Golden State arsonist.
Yeah, including one fire that killed 4 people in a hardware store down in L.A. And so he because of that one fingerprint, he was able to convict a 4-time murderer. He went to prison for murder. His name, the arson investigator who did these crimes, his name was John Orr. And it's pretty incredible that a Bakersfield City firefighter, fire arson investigator, was able to solve this case.
No, that's amazing. Now, any reaction? Because, like I said, a lot of your sources have come from the archives of the Bakersfield, California, and a lot of those reporters are, they're gone already. Mm-hmm. Any reaction? Any response from the Californian? Have you ever done anything? What do they think? I mean, I don't work there anymore. So you can tell me.
Surprisingly, well, we wanted to include some pictures from the Californian. Mm-hmm. We wanted to include the headlines. Like when they appeared in the Californian in the day, and we were going to include those graphics. We approached the Californian about getting the copyright licenses for that, and the price was just too high, and which was kind of disappointing. But you know what? We'll roll with it.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, the family doesn't own it anymore.
No, it's a different publisher. And
they just want show me the money now.
Yeah, we'll see.
Oh wow.
So, anyways, it was disappointing, but oh well. They had something we wanted. We didn't want to pay their price, and we'll move on. So,
well, they owe you because you probably sparked a lot of interest in going to their archive.
Absolutely.
Maybe they hire more reporters to do more thorough work.
But I have talked to different reporters. Michael Trihey, with KGET. He's a fan. A lot of people at KGET are fans. So,
and you know what? I will tell you this: that there are a lot of the reporters, the California, they read it and they listen to the podcast. Yeah. They're fans. They're fans. But they've probably been told.
And Michael Trihey, Michael,
don't talk about it.
Yeah, Michael Trihey, he was the crime reporter.
Mm-hmm.
So I've emailed him and, hey, do you remember this story? What do you think about it? And so he's been a great source.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
So Pete Tittle, if you're out there, Robert's trying to find you.
Yeah.
Reach out to him. Answer his email. Check your inbox. Check your inbox. And you know what? Pete, if you remember the story, your classic review of the Hickory House, right there downtown. I want to find it, or maybe Robert.
I'll find it.
I need you to get on the case.
I'll find it.
Okay. So before we let you go, because I know you're a busy guy. So let's talk about the Lords of Bakersfield. How do people still want to know about the Lords of Bakersfield? Is that still a hot topic?
Yeah. And Robert Price did that story in the Californian, and that's his baby.
Oh yeah, that's his calling card.
People ask me about that story, and people get Robert Price and me both.
Really?
Mixed up. Yeah.
Two Bobs. Bob Peterson, Bob Price.
And he has a new book. He's got the picture book of Bakersfield from Arcadia Press. So that was his. That story he gave that story legs, and it's still to this day people are talking about it.
Oh, I know. But now let me ask you this, because you've been around here for a while. Do you remember the author, local author N.O. Ballard is? And he had a book called Lords Part 1. It was like it was a book of fiction about it was based on the Lords of Bakersfield report story that Bob Price done. Pretty much took Robert Price's work and he kind of rewrote it with different names in there. He even mentioned he had correspondence with Robert Mistrial, who's part of the case. But in the book, it was called he called him minstrel and all that stuff. And and he's Robert Mistrial's out of prison. I don't know, is he still alive?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Have you had any contact with him?
No, but his husband has contacted me.
Really?
Yeah.
So is it what is it? Charging? Is he like a manager? Like if you want to do an interview, it's going to cost you.
I don't know. No. He's just asked me if I wanted to talk to Robert Mistrial, and I haven't yet. It's just not. I don't know. I just don't know.
Yeah.
I do eventually want to talk to him. But Bob Price has talked to him and interviewed him quite a few times. So.
Yeah, it seems like since he got out of prison, like he's wanted people to talk to him. Like, he's made himself very available. But I don't know. It just seems like, I don't know, maybe the story's kind of lost its luster. You know, I don't know. I mean, it is kind of a wild story. It's always going to be something wild. There's always going to be somebody. And I've got, you know, working at the cow, it's not like it was a secret to anybody that the family that owned the cow was kind of associated with it and everything like that. But just kind of like some of the other stories, like the Ronnie Cook story, you don't know what to believe and what not to believe. It just sounds so outrageous.
But on that story with the Robert Mistrial, he was like a 14-year-old kid who was taken advantage of by adult men, you know, in Bakersfield. The other assailant in that murder was Kamanish, and he had no axe to grind with any of the victims that they murdered. So I'm kind of fascinated by that, just like what made him want to kill Ed Buck. That was the victim's name. Because he didn't have any. I can understand Robert Mistrial wanting to kill Ed Buck. He was taken advantage of. But Kamanish, I don't know. I don't know what the motivating factor was there. Yeah,
if you're listening right now, I'm joined by Robert Peterson. He is the author and the host of the Notorious Bakersfield podcast and book. And let me see. Where can people find the book, and where can people find, keep up with all things Notorious Bakersfield?
Absolutely. I'm going to be, Russo's books on New Stein. Well, they have copies of the book if you want to go and support
your local independent
booksellers.
Yeah.
Russo's books on New Stein. It's in the office building just north of Olive Garden. And it's available on Amazon, Amazon.com. Just look for Notorious Bakersfield, the book.
Yeah, leave a 5-star review.
Absolutely.
Let's take it all the way to the top. Do you know how many copies you've sold online, Annie?
Not right
off. It's too early. Yeah, but you want to do it. You want to buy it, and we want to take it to the top, baby. Yeah, get it higher than any Sean Hannity book. Pass all those right wingers. Let's get to some real stuff, some real true crime. Notorious Bakersfield. So what's coming up in 2024 besides continuing to promote the book?
Just working on new episodes. Ronnie Cook, some of those stories. I have several in the pipeline.
Yes. So thank you, Robert Peterson of the Notorious Bakersfield book and podcast, available now for listening and reading wherever you get your podcasts and books. Who would you recommend this book for?
Anybody interested in Bakersfield history. Like, they don't have. It's not just true crime. It's whatever made history or made the headlines in Bakersfield's history.
What you need. You need to have an episode called "It's Not Just True Crime." All right. Thank you so much, Robert.
Thank you for having me.
You got it.
I appreciate it.
Thank you, Robert Peterson of the Notorious Bakersfield podcast, for being on Bako Tunes. So Robert came through after the show was recorded, and he actually found in the Bakersfield, California archives the infamous review of the Hickory House, which is no longer in Bakersfield, California, and it was from October 1991. And it says it's Dining Out with Pete Tittle, who is still a food reviewer at the Bakersfield Californian on Bakersfield.com. And the title of the review is Bad Barbecue Sauce Coats More Problems. Let's read a little bit. If the Hickory House was a horse, someone would shoot it to take it out of its misery. That was the gist of a letter I received a few months ago from Sandy Bird, who said she ignored various clues not to continue her dining experience after entering no other customers, a dirty window, ledge, etc., and went on to have a miserable evening. The food they sampled, tri-tip and steak, was cooked opposite of the way it was ordered, with fat thrown in at no extra charge. The only good part of the meal was the sealed crackers for the salad, she said. The worst moments came when a cook came out of the kitchen with a fresh cut on his arm, which seemed to stir the other employees away from a TV in the back room. Needless to say, we will never set food inside these doors again, she wrote. Scrolling down to one of the later paragraphs, the biggest offender in my book is the barbecue sauce. When it comes to barbecue sauce, I'll admit that I'm pretty easy. I've tried just about every type, and have been able to appreciate the attributes of tomato-based, vinegar-based, the molasses-heavy variety. You name it. If I was stranded on an island with only the Hickory House sauce, I'd eat my meat plain. It has an offensive medicinal quality that makes it taste like something you'd have to work hard to convince your child to swallow. Okay, there you have it. The infamous Pete Tittle review of the Hickory House, which is no longer with us. But if you're familiar with the Tolo wine bar and Sequoia restaurants in downtown Bakersfield, it's now a parking lot. So that's where the Hickory House used to be. All right. Thanks for listening.
The Bako Tunes podcast with Matt Munoz. New episodes every week. And for the latest, be sure to follow us at Bako Tunes on Instagram and Twitter. That's BAKOTUNES. And be sure to like us, rate us, comment at us, and don't forget to subscribe. We'll be back next time.